Thanks for tuning in to our partner webinar brought to you by the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. This webinar is part of our NANP's partnership program, bringing you the latest information, education, products, and services from the holistic nutrition and wellness space. These webinars are recorded from a live event with a Q&A session for the attending audience. We hope you find this information useful and consider including our partners and their offerings in your life.
Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. Welcome to today's webinar featuring Standard Process with Dr. Sarah Clark. I am your host, Tiffany Perry, Development Specialist for the NANP. Just as a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and will be sent out at the end of this week with a link for all the registrants. Okay, let's get started. Today we present Red Foods for Clinical Success, the therapeutic power of red phytonutrients. Dr. Sarah Clark is a certified functional medicine practitioner and chiropractor. She currently serves as the chiropractic liaison for Standard Process, supporting clinical education and collaboration within the chiropractic and integrative healthcare communities. She earned her doctorate from Palmer College of Chiropractic West in 2015 after completing a BA in psychology from Kenyon College in 2012. Her advanced training with the Institute for Functional Medicine reflects a steadfast commitment to clinical excellence and an evidence-based approach to optimizing patient health. Drawing on her strong foundation in both mental and physical health, Dr. Clark is especially passionate about the integration of nutrition and lifestyle factors and their impact on mind-body wellness. And I just wanted to let everyone know, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and Dr. Clark will get to them at the end of her presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for that kind introduction, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. And as she said, I'm Sarah Clark, and today I have the privilege of talking to you all about how to use red foods for clinical success. So we'll be going over the therapeutic power of red phytonutrients today. And I'm really excited to be here and speaking about this. So let's go ahead and get started. So, as healthcare practitioners in the United States, I think we are all aware that we are part of this stark chronic health epidemic in the US at this point. And research that went on in 2023, looking at data for over a decade, found that actually over 3/4 of US adults, or over 76%, were actually found to have at least one chronic health condition. And this, of course, translates to a huge number of people now. So over 194 million Americans are dealing with this. So it's a really big issue. And we know that actually over half of US adults have multiple chronic health conditions. So we can see on this chart here that it really breaks it down by age group. We see that this orange line is going to encompass all adults, both for one chronic condition and then multiple chronic conditions on the right-hand column. And what really sticks out to me is if we look at this light blue line, the 35 to 64-year-olds, that is really disheartening. I think when a lot of us think about this age group, we think about it being like the prime of life. But unfortunately, even in this group, over 50% of them have at least one chronic health condition. And it unfortunately gets worse as we get older, right? We see this middle age bracket being 35 to 64 years old, and over half of people actually have these multiple chronic health conditions. And so I think this is one of the reasons probably why you're all here today, why we got into the nutrition field, because we really want to help people get healthier and live their best lives and to their fullest potential. But this can get harder and harder as we see these common conditions like obesity, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure being really prevalent. And of course, these are all really significant factors as well for cardiometabolic health. But I think one of the positives here that we all probably see in practice is that these issues can be greatly influenced by diet and lifestyle. And so today we'll be really diving into the role that the red phytonutrients specifically play in the clinical success of helping these issues as well. And one aspect of the prevalence of the chronic disease epidemic that we see that probably most of us can agree on today is that our diet and what we put into our bodies is just a huge driver of these trends for increased inflammation and cardiometabolic issues like insulin resistance and glucose dysregulation. So, when I think about the standard American diet, I really think about this image here. And this is just your typical grocery store. So, of course, we know that it's full of these ultra processed grains, refined sugars, unhealthy oils, and it's, of course, devoid of things that are really important, like all of our vitamins, our minerals, our phytonutrients, and antioxidants, of course. And so, this is pretty common across the board, right? I think most of us, even if we're all around the country, can see a grocery store and it looks pretty similar to this. But the foods that really we want our clients to be eating and that we should be eating are kind of pushed to the side. A lot of times the produce section is kind of like in a corner, smaller section of the store. So what we really want to be thinking about is how we can, of course, get to that smaller section of the store. We'll be talking about how to bring in more of those whole foods today. But really, I just want to highlight that the standard American diet is just not setting us up for success in our health journey or in our clients' health journeys either. And we can really see this huge discrepancy, I think, between the processed foods that we saw on the previous slide and then this colorful salad plate. So, what I see here is this beautiful array of colorful fruits and vegetables and some key phytonutrients that are sticking out. The lycopene in the tomatoes and the betalains in beets are just a couple of the bioactives that we see here. But I think we know that with our clients, most people do not eat this way, right? I think it's pretty apparent that over 75% of the world actually doesn't consume the recommended amount of phytonutrients that they should. And in America, very similar, right? 8 out of 10 people have this big gap in their phytonutrient intake. And I think what's really striking as well is that the red phytonutrient group is actually especially deficient. So, about 90% of Americans aren't consuming enough of these red phytonutrients, and this can have a really significant impact on these health outcomes. So, while these red foods are really beautiful and vibrant, I just want to point out that they're really actually bringing so much more to the table than just these beautiful pigments. And so, they actually contain these potent bioactive compounds that have antioxidant effects and anti inflammatory effects on the body. And more recently, I'm really appreciative of this, that research has really been diving in and studying these phytonutrients and the specific effects that they have on the body. And they've come to the conclusion that a higher consumption of fruits and vegetables has actually led to a lower risk of both all cause mortality and cardiovascular mortality, which is huge, right? We know that this is a key player in what is causing most of the deaths in the country and around the globe. And so that's why these red foods here are in this heart shape, because it is a nod to their support of cardiovascular health. And we know that one of the mechanisms here at play is really how they support our oxidative stress and really helping support multiple cardiometabolic biomarkers. And we'll be diving into some of that research here today. And so I think it's inspiring to me that when we ask our clients to put these types of foods on their plates, it's not only impacting their risk of disease, but it can also influence their lifespan and their health span, which I think is really powerful. And when we're talking about this chronic disease risk and aging overall, I think we all know that reactive oxygen species are really a key player in the damage that can happen on a cellular level. So, reactive oxygen species like hydrogen peroxide, superoxide, and these hydroxyl radicals can, of course, damage our lipids. They can cause damage to our DNA and even lead to this protein denaturation, which can cause a change in protein structure and then negatively impact their function. So, these high levels of reactive oxygen species can also activate our transcription factors like NF kappa beta and then stimulate things like our pro inflammatory cytokines like our IL 1 beta, our IL 6, and our TNF alpha. So, Ideally, we want enough of these antioxidants to be able to donate their electrons and counteract reactive oxygen species. But unfortunately, when we don't have this balance, we can end up with this oxidative stress. And we know that chronic inflammation and oxidative stress really go hand in hand when we see these chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, even our neurodegenerative diseases, and of course throughout the entire aging process. And so this is one of the reasons why we get that term inflammaging, because they can go hand in hand. And Thomas Edison actually said this quote all the way back in 1903, and I just wanted to share it because I think it's still really relevant today. So he said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." And I think this really speaks to what we all do every day as integrative practitioners, because we really support people and empower them to take care of their bodies and utilize these whole foods as a powerful tool to support the body in health and positive health outcomes. And this just improves their resilience against disease. And so it's really amazing, right? We know we have this array of polyphenols at our disposal. I think we're all really aware of the idea of this phytochemical rainbow and all of these amazing, colorful fruits and vegetables that have so much to offer us. We know that we have over 10,000, sometimes people even say up to like 20 or 25,000 phytonutrients. So there are so many, probably some that even have yet to be explored. But I think it's really great just because we're able to then teach our clients about how these are so beneficial and how we can really harness their benefits. So we'll be focusing on the red on the outside of this rainbow today. And the red phytonutrients are specifically anti-inflammatory, they're antioxidant rich, they provide amazing cardiometabolic support, and even neuroprotective benefits. So we'll be kind of diving into all of these categories today. And today, while we can't go over all 25,000, we are going to be highlighting just 3 groups of red phytonutrients. So we'll be talking about some anthocyanins, highlighting a couple carotenoids, and talking about betalains as well. And we'll just be showcasing really how they play these important roles in protecting ourselves against oxidative stress, this inflammatory burden that we see in so many chronic conditions. And I think that these pigments actually go so far beyond just being antioxidants, because we do know that they have specific bioactive effects that can really translate into these clinical outcomes that we see now in the research, like improved endothelial health, optimized metabolic biomarkers, and supporting cognitive resilience. And so we'll be kicking off this category of anthocyanins to get started. And so anthocyanins are a really significant polyphenol that are part of the flavonoid group, and they're responsible for red, blue, and purple pigments. And like we said, their effects are so much more than just the color that they provide to the foods. So they do have these antioxidant properties, so they are able to neutralize free radicals and can really be beneficial at protecting the body against oxidative damage. And they're also able to upregulate endogenous antioxidants. So they can activate the NRF2 pathway and really boost our body's production then of really important antioxidant enzymes like our glutathione peroxidase, our superoxide dismutase, as well as catalase. And so today we'll be diving into 3 main anthocyanins. So we'll be talking about pelargonidin, which is really found in a high concentration in strawberries and radishes. We'll be talking about cyanidin that we see in cherries, red raspberries, red cabbage, and purple corn, just to name a few, and peonidin, which is high in red grapes and purple carrots. And so let's dive into pelargonidin, which we see often in these beautiful radishes and strawberries. So pelargonidin has been studied in a wide variety of research, but I thought that this study was really interesting because it actually looked at adults with prediabetes, and they found that 2.5 servings of strawberries, which equates to about 2.5 cups or 32 grams, when consumed daily for 12 weeks, was able to have these really significant effects on the cardiometabolic profile. So they found that it was able to help lower insulin levels, fasting glucose levels. It even lowered high sensitivity C reactive protein as well as total cholesterol. And they even found that the subjects that consumed this intervention were able to reduce their body weight and reduce IL-6 levels, which we know are inflammatory. So this study stood out to me just because this 2.5 servings of strawberries seems very attainable for most clients, especially if they're putting them into a protein-rich smoothie or something like that. It can be just a really interesting way to help support people in this way and in this population. And this study similarly looked at pelargonidin, but actually from wild raspberry. And it was shown to improve glucose levels. It attenuated hepatic dysfunction and actually improved lipid profiles as well. And specifically, when subjects ate the wild raspberry, it was found to prevent hyperglycemia, which we know is such a huge issue in terms of developing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So we can see this control line in black on the top here. And this is just really interesting. We can see the significant difference here with the pelargonidin intervention in blue and red. And this was in a glucose tolerance test. And then on the right, we have this chart looking at LDL levels, specifically LDL cholesterol. And we can again see this significant reduction in LDL levels with the pelargonidin when we're comparing it to the control. So pretty powerful effects here. And not only has pelargonidin been found to improve glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity, but it's really been found to be beneficial as well for helping the body recover from spinal injury. So this study was really powerful because it looked at this intervention in terms of how it could improve motor performance, and actually it was able to alleviate these neuropathic pain signals as well. And so pelargonidin really was able to do this by restoring these matrix metalloproteinase 2s or MMP2s while decreasing MMP9 activity. And so an easy way to think about this is that these MMP9s are really inflammatory, while MMP2 is anti-inflammatory. So both of these values were returned to more favorable values, and this just helped restore the body's return to homeostasis following injury. And this study also found that pelargonidin was able to increase the number of motor neurons in the ventral horn of the spinal cord after treatment. So this was exciting to me. I think that these are really promising results for this growing field of treatment to help restore motion and reduce pain post-spinal cord injury. And of course, just keeping nutrition at the forefront when we are helping these clients. And our next red phytonutrient is cyanidin, which is often found in cherries, red raspberries, and purple cabbage. So cyanidin is, of course, another potent antioxidant. It's able to block inflammatory transcription factors like NF-kappa beta, and it's been found to support this shift from an inflammatory M1 phenotype to an M2 or anti-inflammatory phenotype. And so cyanidin in the research has been found to just support this state of healing and inflammation resolution, which we know is so important. And research has also found that cyanidin really helps reprogram immune cells to actually go away from this chronic fight mode that's characterized by inflammation and instead create this restorative and tissue healing environment that's characterized by macrophage 2 or M2. And clinically, we could see this look like reduced inflammation, better recovery from stress, and improved metabolic balance. And clinically, you might see this basically a difference in a client's system, like in one that's stuck in a flare versus one that's less inflamed and ready to heal. So, of course, this is something that we want and is really important on the healing journey. And cyanidin can also increase antioxidant enzymes because it can activate NRF2, and it also activates AMPK signaling pathways, both of which we know are so important for cardiometabolic health. And cyanidin 3-glucoside is the predominant anthocyanin in berries, and it's just shown these really impressive metabolic effects that go far beyond antioxidant activity. So it actually upregulates GLUT1 and GLUT4 expression. And really, what this tells us is that it helps the glucose's entry into cells. So it's able to improve this insulin sensitivity, reduce circulating glucose levels, and of course, this can have a beneficial impact on lipid profiles. This can help clients just have better glycemic control and even less visceral fat accumulation, especially in clients with metabolic syndrome or early insulin resistance. And I just thought it was really interesting. This study actually showed that cyanidin can improve mitochondrial biogenesis and increase brown adipose tissue, which we know supports thermogenesis and metabolic resilience. So many interesting takeaways here. And cyanidin has also been found to improve the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut, like bifidobacteria and Akkermansia muciniphila. So, Akkermansia specifically has been found to enhance mucosal integrity of the gut lining, which we know is a huge deal because it's able to then reduce the translocation of LPS or lipopolysaccharides, which then can actually reduce the infiltration of these inflammatory cytokines. Not only does this just impact the gut microbiome, but with the gut brain connection, we know that it can have these neuroprotective benefits by actually reducing neuroinflammation, which is so important for neurodegenerative disease. And I think just remembering that gut brain connection here is so important. I did want to include some other benefits of Akkermansia here as well and why we want to support it. So it actually has shown improvements in the literature in things like weight control, blood sugar regulation, and so it's been shown to help support a healthy metabolism. And I really wanted to end this section on cyanidin with this study on its anti-carcinogenic effects because I think it highlights the variety of benefits that can really come from something so simple as these phytonutrients. So this study actually found that cyanidin was found to impair tumor growth and proliferation, specifically in lung large cell carcinoma. And it also increased the rate of tumor cell apoptosis or programmed cell death, which of course is important for cancer prevention and when we're thinking about these supportive strategies. And similar to what we've seen with the other anthocyanins, this study also found a downregulation of the inflammatory cytokines, including NF-kappa beta, IL-1 beta, TNF alpha, C-reactive protein, all of these drivers of tumor-promoting inflammation. And peonidin is our third and final anthocyanin that we'll talk about today. And it's found in red plums, red grapes, and purple carrots, just to name a few. And I wanted to start with peonidin's effect on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because it is one of the most common liver disorders globally. And of course, it's been linked to a variety of issues like metabolic dysfunction, oxidative stress, and of course, chronic inflammation. And we really see this lipid accumulation in hepatocytes that just drives this overproduction of reactive oxygen species, which can cause mitochondrial injury and just fuel this inflammatory cascade that, as we see in this diagram, can basically progress toward non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, causing this fibrosis and cirrhosis or buildup of scar tissue. And this study was really interesting because the peonidin was isolated actually from purple corn, and it was found to reduce lipid accumulation in hepatocytes. It was found to suppress these oxidative stress markers because of its ability to decrease reactive oxygen species. And it actually enhanced antioxidant defense because it was able to upregulate superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, and catalase activity. And something else that was really interesting was that it was actually able to restore mitochondrial membrane potential, which was able to improve cellular energy and just reduce oxidative stress, which can often help these cells survive, which is really powerful. And so not only does peonidin support liver health, but it's also been shown to have neuroprotective benefits. So we've seen this actually in the case of neurodegenerative disease. So in this study, peonidin was able to inhibit alpha-synuclein fibrillation. So it really prevented the formation of these toxic aggregates that contribute to neuronal death in Parkinson's disease. And it was interesting because this study actually looked at other anthocyanins like cyanidin, and it actually only partially modified the fibril formation, and peonidin completely suppressed it. So I took that as an interesting takeaway and just highlighting the specific benefits that we can see with each phytonutrient. And peonidin was also able to do this because it acted on the sites of protein misfolding. So it actually was able to help the body create these stable helical structures rather than these tangles. And so it was able to help prevent Lewy body formation, reduce neuroinflammation, and ease up oxidative stress. So really, I think that looking at these compounds in peonidin that we see in plums and berries and purple corn can really provide potentially neuroprotective effects that, like we said, go beyond antioxidant activity. So I think it's an exciting development in the field of brain health and neurodegenerative disease prevention too. And so we know these red foods that we're talking about, like strawberries and radishes and pomegranates, don't just have one phytonutrient, they have many. So an example here would be pomegranate. Pomegranate has these multiple anthocyanins present, including pelargonidin, peonidin, and cyanidin, all of which we talked about so far today. And research has found interesting results with these compounds together. They've been found to modulate NF-kappa beta, COX-3, and showcase growth inhibition and apoptosis in breast cancer cells. And it's not just specific to breast cancer cells. Studies have often shown this anti-proliferative effect for colon cancer cells as well with this pomegranate intervention. So, as we conclude this section on anthocyanins, I think we can see with these studies, it really exemplifies how these naturally occurring plant compounds can really hold therapeutic value. And hopefully, this will lead to more and more research, which of course is always needed. And so, next we'll be talking about two key carotenoids, lycopene and astaxanthin. And so lycopene is one of our key carotenoids, and we know our carotenoids are fat soluble, so they're typically accumulating in lipid-rich environments like our cell membranes, even our adipose tissue and lipoproteins. And they also play this antioxidant role. They're really able to protect cellular membranes from oxidative damage. We know lycopene is abundant in fruits like tomatoes and watermelon and pink guava and grapefruit. And interestingly enough, the number one source of red phytonutrients that Americans do consume is lycopene because of ketchup consumption. So, ketchup consumption is the main one. And then we know as well, people are eating a lot of pasta sauce and pizza sauce. So, the good news here is that lycopene does become more bioavailable in these cooked and heated products because of how it changes the chemical structure. So we don't want, to tell everyone to keep eating all of their pasta and pizza all the time, but at least we are getting some lycopene from those sources. And lycopene as well also has a lot of vascular benefits. So this study actually found it to be able to lower cholesterol, specifically low density lipoprotein cholesterol. And what's really impressive to me here is that this study found that just 25 milligrams of lycopene per day for 2 to 8 weeks was found to have effects similar to a low dose of statins. So they found this 10% reduction in LDL cholesterol. And the mechanism here is thought to be because it is able to inhibit HMG-CoA reductase, just like the mechanisms of statins. So something else that stood out to me from this study is that 25 milligrams of lycopene is found in about a cup of tomato sauce or 6 to 8 tomatoes. So this feels really reasonable for me for people to be able to bring in and integrate into their weekly diet. And based on what we've talked about so far, I think it really makes sense that these low lycopene levels have been associated with higher levels of oxidation of both lipids and proteins. And this research was really interesting because it looked at lycopene levels in the serum and the tissue, and they found that they were inversely related to the incidence of prostate cancer. So it found that when subjects consumed more than 10 servings per week of lycopene-rich foods like tomatoes, and this includes tomato sauce, even tomato juice, and pizza sauce, they actually had a lower risk of prostate cancer when compared to the group that had fewer than 1.5 servings of lycopene per week. All right. Next, we are moving on to astaxanthin. And I think astaxanthin has been getting a little bit more hype in the research, which is really amazing. And there are a lot of great benefits for it. So, we know that astaxanthin is this beautiful, bright red-orange carotenoid pigment that we see in foods here and animals. The salmon, shrimp that we see on the screen, as well as lobster. But in reality, just like the other phytonutrients we talked about, it really is so much more than just the color because it is this bioactive compound that contains antioxidant properties and has this amazing ability to protect both cellular membranes and mitochondrial membranes against this lipid peroxidation. And if we think about salmon, we know that they're able to swim for thousands of miles upstream. They have this incredible ability to jump. And what research has actually shown is that a lot of these muscular effects actually can translate to human studies on exercise endurance and support for recovery. So we'll be talking about that a little bit today too. And so, research has found that astaxanthin is actually way more powerful at protecting the phospholipid bilayer than vitamin E and beta carotene. And this is partially due to its structure and how it sits in the bilayer. So, we can see here how vitamin C is in this extracellular space, almost on top of that bilayer, and beta carotene is actually within the intracellular space. So, astaxanthin we see in the middle, this bright red orange color, and it actually is able to span the entire membrane. So it really provides this widespread protection against reactive oxygen species to a larger and greater extent. So it really just is better able to protect the membrane, which makes it really significant as this cellular membrane protector and a protector for mitochondria too. And I love the strength and endurance findings on astaxanthin. This is what I was kind of referencing in regards to the power of the salmon. And so this study looked at how many squats the participants could do both before and then after an intervention of just 4 milligrams per day of astaxanthin that was sourced from whole algal biomass. And they were actually able to do 3 times their squat repetitions after 6 months. And so I think that this is really amazing to think about for clients who are maybe looking just to improve their muscular strength or improve their endurance, or those maybe who are just starting out in terms of exercise. Maybe they're bringing in squats like in terms of micro breaks during their day to kind of break up sitting at the office. I think we know how important muscular strength is and that sarcopenia is such a big issue for so many aging clients, but even our muscle mass starts declining at age 30. So it's really something that we have to start thinking about probably earlier in the life cycle just to get our clients active, moving, and then thinking about the importance of muscle health in healthy aging too. And this is another one of my favorite studies just because it looked at the benefits of astaxanthin for the skin. And so they actually found that with the astaxanthin intervention, the subjects had improvements in wrinkles, they had better skin moisture, their texture improved, and it actually showed a reduction in age spot size as well. And I think that this makes a lot of sense as we go through the lifespan. We know that our skin undergoes oxidative stress and damage, especially due to UV sun exposure. And so astaxanthin is this really interesting new strategy that's been found to really protect the skin from these signs of photoaging. Excuse me. And now it's time for our next red phytonutrient, and that is betalains. And so, similar to the other phytonutrients we've talked about, betalains are so much more than meets the eye. So, we do have these beautiful red pigments that we see in foods like beets that were on the last slide, Swiss chard, and mountain spinach and prickly pear. but they also can actually be classified into two groups, the beta cyanins, which give this red purple color, and the beta xanthins, which exhibit this actually yellow orange color. And so we see both of these varieties in this picture. And if we're being even more specific, our betanins are these red violet pigments that are found in foods like beets, Swiss chard, and mountain spinach. And so betalains have been found to actually influence a variety of body systems, and they support the modulation of oxidative stress and support cardiometabolic health through a variety of ways. So they've actually been able to lower LDL levels. They've been found to support insulin sensitivity, and they also have these anti-inflammatory effects because they're able to activate NRF2 and inhibit NF-kappa beta as well as COX-2. And they go even further with their benefits. They're able to upregulate phase 2 detoxification and act as methyl donors, which we know has a large effect on so many areas of the body. And I wanted to bring in this study that I thought was really interesting because they found that when postmenopausal women had about half of a glass of beetroot juice a few hours before a workout, they found a 40-meter increase in a 6-minute walk test and a heart rate recovery score that decreased by 10 beats per minute after the walk test. While the 40 meters doesn't sound like a lot, it is about 131 feet more. So in 6 minutes, that is clinically significant. And so with our clients that are really wanting to improve their training, maybe improve their physical activity, this is a nutrient to keep in mind. And we know that in this postmenopausal population, maintaining mobility and strength is so important in keeping muscles strong, combating sarcopenia, and supporting bone health. So this is just something to keep in mind for this population. And I think we are all well aware that the nitrates in beets are so well studied. They support nitric oxide production, which encourages vasodilation and also reduces arterial stiffness. And they're also able to support proper bile flow as well. And we talked about how we need, of course, protection for the liver. We've seen this increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So betanin would be a good thought for that as well. And betanin can also enhance exercise performance and accelerate muscle recovery. So now we've talked about these two whole food supports for exercise performance and recovery, both the astaxanthin and the betanin in beetroot. And betalains have been also found to improve various biomarkers. Specifically, in this study, they looked at coronary artery disease patients. And in this study, they found that the treatment group that consumed beta cyanins was able to reduce homocysteine, which we know is a really key player in vascular disease, as well as lower triglycerides, total cholesterol, and LDL levels. And they also found improvements in systolic blood pressure, and this was actually all in a 2-week period for the intervention. And so here's a little summary slide of the impact of betalains and the various impacts that they can have on multiple cardiometabolic risk factors like lowering LDL levels, improving triglyceride levels, lowering BMI, as well as post-meal glucose. And they've also been found to boost our endogenous antioxidant enzymes like NRF2 and reduce inflammation by inhibiting NF-kappa beta. So we can really see the array of benefits like they hold, like the other phytonutrients we've been talking about too. And I did want to end with a much lesser known crop that's high in both betalains and anthocyanins, and this is mountain spinach. So mountain spinach is this beautiful kind of vibrant red color, and it's also known as a halophyte because it actually is able to take up these trace minerals from the earth, like chromium, for example. And so we know that chromium naturally declines as we age, and it can also become depleted with extensive sweating. So this could be seen in endurance athletes. It could be seen in people who are maybe working outside in really hot climates, like construction workers. And while it does take a lot to really lower chromium levels, we do see actually an increase in blood sugar and lipid levels with chromium deficiency. Supplementation has been found to reverse these effects, which is really interesting. And I did want to bring up actually that mountain spinach has been used in Mediterranean folk medicine to treat diabetes. So, really interesting kind of traditional use there. And we've seen that chromium plays this key role in glycemic control because it's able to activate insulin receptors and support this glucose uptake. So we know we've talked about the standard American diet that our clients are eating more and more of these simple carbs, and often this can cause their insulin sensitivity to decline. And so we see more glucose in the bloodstream, leading to things like diabetes. But in this study, they actually found that in subjects with diabetes, chromium was able to improve insulin sensitivity. It improved fasting glucose levels and also improved hemoglobin A1C levels. So, mountain spinach is another interesting thought to support this glycemic control. And with all of these beautiful red phytonutrients in mind, I did want to introduce you to our newest standard process product, which is called SP Red Food. And so SP Red Food contains astaxanthin from whole algae. It also contains organic red beetroot, which is grown on our standard process certified organic farm, and organic mountain spinach, which is also grown on the standard process organic farm that's located in Wisconsin. And so I wanted to include the nutrition label here for you. One serving size is 3 capsules, and it does contain as many nitrates as half of a cup of beets. So this is really interesting for all of these busy clients who may be finding it hard to eat well, or maybe they're traveling a lot, and this can be an interesting option for them for nitrates. And it's also an excellent source of naturally occurring chromium. And each serving contains 6 milligrams of astaxanthin, which is from the whole algae Haematococcus pluvialis, and it supports cell membrane antioxidant activity. And so SP Red Food is really meant to support the cardiometabolic system, and it supports healthy blood flow, healthy blood vessel function. It supports proper insulin functioning and glucose and lipid metabolism. And we know as well that SP Red Food supports an active lifestyle and supports health span. So it helps to improve endurance exercise performance. It can support muscle recovery after exercise and also mobility in combination with exercise. And we didn't have as much time to dive into the research here on astaxanthin, but it also does help support occasional screen fatigue and eye strain. So for those clients that are staring at the computer all day, like a lot of us, or looking at phones, things like that, it can be supportive in that way. And it can also help protect the skin from the effects of photoaging and just support the entire aging process. And so, in terms of client considerations, anyone with suboptimal cardiometabolic or vascular health, I would think about this for. Anyone who needs this support for insulin sensitivity, glucose regulation, or lipid metabolism. And those who want needs for endurance support for exercise or muscle recovery. And then anyone who wants support with healthy aging or protecting the skin from photoaging. This could be a great support. And then those that have visual eye fatigue or report eye strain with prolonged screen use, this could be another great option. And we do also have these synergistic products for cardiometabolic health. So our Ulprima EPA DHA is a great source of our omega-3 fatty acids. We do have Metabol Complex, which is an herbal supplement that supports the metabolism of fats and sugars, as well as supporting the pancreas and liver function. And then our Glucose Assist chocolate, which can be used like a protein powder and has been found to support a reduced postprandial glucose response. And we actually have over 60 clinical protocols. And here are 2 examples that both include SP Red Food. They are support for exercise endurance and support for cardiometabolic health. So we also have a variety of practitioner resources available. For many of our products, we have a fact sheet. This is an example of the fact sheet for SP Red Food. We also have a white paper that goes into more depth in terms of the research around all of the ingredients in the product. And then we have specific healthcare practitioner handouts and patient brochures with more information. And all of these are located actually on our website. It's completely free to create a standard process practitioner account. You would simply go to standardprocess.com and then in the top right corner, apply for an account, apply as a healthcare practitioner, and there's actually a drop-down menu that does say NANP. So we hopefully make it very simple to do that. And then you have access to all of these types of resources. You'll see the clinical protocols there as well. And just wanted to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you all being here. And I know we'll be answering some questions here shortly, but if there are any additional questions that come up that we aren't able to get to, we do have an entire clinical product support team that's available to answer questions, and feel free to email them at education@standardprocess.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm looking here. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box and I can pull them out. I was given a couple questions here, so I'll just go down mine, what I have. Let's see here. You had made a comment about chromium is depleted in sweating. So would you say that mountain spinach is good for people with night sweats?
Absolutely. I would say I haven't seen specifically research for like mitigating night sweats with chromium, but in terms of what occurs due to night sweats, which could be that chromium depletion potentially, I would say absolutely. Bringing that in could be great.
Okay. The second question is, are there synergistic effects when combining multiple red phytonutrients together, such as beets, cherries, pomegranates?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that one study that just looked at even the pomegranates and the red phytonutrients that are contained in there and the effects that it can have on various cells was really telling. But absolutely, I think combining all of them together, nature has this incredible ability to already have synergistic effects within foods. And so combining more and really having that variety, I think can help clients cover bases and just get more of the powerful effects. So I would definitely agree with that.
Okay. Well, you said that what was that? In food bioavailability, trying to understand this. You talked about the impact of bioavailability in cooked products. How does food preparation impact the bioavailability of red phytonutrients, such as, boiling, steaming, that type of thing? I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
yeah, absolutely. So to my knowledge, I would say it kind of depends on the food. So I know that with even phytonutrients like sulforaphane, if we're, boiling broccoli for a long time, it's actually going to deactivate. So kind of have like that opposite effect. So I would always err toward more of like the light steaming, unless we're talking about things like the lycopene, where they have done numerous studies looking at things like the pizza sauce, the pasta sauce, even
Mhm.
the processed tomato juice, like we talked about. So, all of those, in terms of like the heat stability, have shown really promising results. If you are eating things like the raspberries, the radishes, the pomegranates, like we talked about, I would go more on the side of having those raw. That's what I've seen in the research in terms of having that bioavailability. But that is a great question. I'd have to look more into the research on each specific food though.
What came to mind when I saw that was we do a lot of grilling of tomatoes in my house. So that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking of. Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think grilling, so we're still getting that heat there. Of course, I think most of us know that in terms of like the charring, we can get more of that like oxidative effect. So staying away from kind of like that blackening and charring is probably a great call. But again, the grilling is a great way to kind of get into that different form and increase bioavailability. So I love that.
Okay. Let's see, got a couple more here. The next one, are there specific contraindications or sensitivities that practitioners should consider when introducing red phytonutrient rich supplements?
Ah, interesting. I love that one. So, one thing I might think about is going to be oxalate content. So, specifically, mountain spinach actually does have a lower oxalate content than, say, green spinach, for example. And so that would be one if patients are sensitive to oxalates, just being aware of that. Again, it is a lower profile than regular spinach, but just something to be aware of if patients are sensitive or if they have any contraindications to high oxalate foods.
Okay. And then another
Yeah.
question we have is for varicose veins and circulation problems, would standard process red food help?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of supporting blood flow and circulation, the ingredients can definitely be helpful for that. Any of these foods and ingredients that are high in those nitrates that support vasodilation and blood flow can be really promising. In terms of like our Nutrition Innovation Center, where we do our research, we have not specifically done research looking at the product on varicose veins, but in terms of just what I've seen in the literature, for those ingredients and circulation, I would hope for promising results there. Plus the as well with the skin impacts of astaxanthin, I think that would be really interesting in terms of getting more clarity in the research.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have today. That was very informative and educational, and it was
Oh,
very
great.
interesting.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Hopefully everyone thought so. And I just really appreciate everyone being here today. And thank you, Tiffany, for having me.
You're very welcome. And I know that Standard Process will be at 2026 HillCon. Do you know if they will be bringing their new product with them?
I will definitely put in a good word for it. I think that we will be, but I will talk with our team and it should be there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We
Yes.
appreciate you joining us today. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out here to this email address and someone will get back to you as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
The information presented in this webinar is for educational purposes only. Please note that holistic nutrition professionals do not diagnose, prevent, treat, cure, prescribe, manage, or heal diseases or medical conditions. They are also not licensed in any state and work with clients, not patients. There are no continuing education credits associated with this webinar.